right, Joe. So why don't you start us off? Who do you have in tier number one?
All right, in tier number one, at the number one, I've got Roquan Smith. Number two, Foye Oluokun, and number three, Edgerrin Cooper.
All right, for me at number one, I got Roquan Smith. Number two, Foye Oluokun. Three, Zaire Franklin. And four, Fred Warner. We've been doing a lot of these episodes with rankings with tiers per position. I thought maybe you and I would be the same out of the gate. We haven't been that way in quite some time here for these past few episodes. You surprised me a little bit with the Edgerrin Cooper. What brought you here in tier one? You must really like his upside here.
Yeah, I really like his upside, and then also hard to deny his youth as well. But yeah, I think he's got the potential to rise up and be right up there with these top guys here.
Yeah, I mean, he's 23 years old. Ended up having 77 total tackles last year. Good start. Wouldn't say it was anything dominant. I think, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but like I don't have Quay Walker in my top 24. I think he's been a disappointment for Green Bay. He's going to be a free agent next year. I don't think that the Packers will re-sign him. And Edgerrin Cooper is that ranging linebacker, kind of a tweener type. We wondered if he'd be more of a pass rusher. That was my concern about him entering into the draft. But he's essentially what it seems like been what they hoped Quay Walker would kind of be. And I think he's almost kind of replaced that skill and ability for the Packers. So I think Walker, we don't know. That's the thing that scares me. Anytime a linebacker is bound to be a free agent and they haven't been that great, who knows what's going to happen to him. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself with Quay Walker, but I'm just making that point in talking about Edgerrin Cooper, where I think he could continue. Now, Walker still has one more year left. Cooper's got a few more years left on his rookie deal.
Yeah, for the similar reasons, I also don't have Quay Walker in my top 24 either.
Really interesting. So you felt
Yeah.
similar to me about him.
Yeah, just you mentioned it, having this 1 year left, remaining on his contract, and not sure. Like, I know they're saying Packers are considering working out a possible extension for him. Like you said, I'm not so sure that happens, and then it's like, where else, will he go? And that's the scariest part, despite being a young player.
Yeah, I just at the end of the day, when the team declined his fifth year option, that's all you needed to know,
Yeah, that's true.
in my opinion. So I agree with you. I mean, Roquan and Foye are at the top, right? Roquan's 28. He's been the model of consistency. He's basically averages about 160 tackles, total tackles each year, you know, every year. He may not be the number one or number two guy, but he's going to be in the top group. Same thing. Now Foye did drop off a little bit last year. He only played 13 games, but that 3 year stretch, 1 year in Atlanta and 2 years in Jacksonville, had unbelievable seasons. 192 total tackles, 184 and 173. So I mean, this guy. I mean, he has been, and I thought with him going to Jacksonville, I was like, he's going there to basically rot because free agents, and typically they would get a ton of money to go to Jacksonville, and all of a sudden they just gone. But actually, former
Yeah,
Broncos, Joe, from what I remember, right? Tight end Julius Thomas, that happened, and there was also a defensive lineman from the Broncos, I think, that went there too.
yeah, Malik Jackson.
That's what it is. Yeah, both of them just were complete flops, and the Jaguars gave them a ton of money.
Yep. You got that completely right there.
I was going back in the memory banks on those, and I'm not even a Broncos fan. Now, I'm a little surprised you don't have Zaire Franklin or Fred Warner in this group. Fred Warner just signed that extension. I believe it was a 3 year extension with the 49ers. Most expensive extension yet for a house off the ball linebacker, if I'm not mistaken. He's only 28 years old. Now, he isn't a guy who is necessarily the top shelf, but he's always in that top. He's in that linebacker one room every year. And to me, knowing that he's going to be in the middle of that defense and I don't have to worry or fret that he's going to be just cut and taken away, to me, he locks in that number one tier.
Yeah, I didn't I did consider Zaire Franklin just because he's been, a very consistent linebacker. He's consistently, one of the top linebackers in our fantasy league as well. But Fred Warner I was gonna always have in tier two.
Why is that?
Like he's a really good NFL linebacker. But as far as like scoring in our league, like he is consistent, but he hasn't always, scored at the top with a lot of these other guys. Um, and maybe that does change because I mean they're putting a lot more onus on him. He did get that extension, and we'll see. With him being alone in the middle without Drake Greenlaw next to him.
Is it because with Zaire Franklin, now he has a 3-year deal with the Colts right now, but the Colts could easily decide to get out from underneath the contract next year. With all the kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, controversy between him and Pat McAfee, I was almost like an ambassador of the Colts, maybe feeling like he doesn't try hard enough, whatever. Do you feel as though Zaire Franklin's role is kind of in jeopardy with the Colts, even though he has what appears to be that 3-year deal?
That not so much the Pat McAfee part, but just their track record, with the
Shaq Leonard.
linebackers and Shaq Leonard, letting him go. I mean, honestly, too, just I was surprised that they decided to let EJ Speed go as well and not decide to bring him back. But yeah, just I don't know. Even though he's been a very productive player, I still have him ranked highly. I just didn't put him in the tier 1, but those are some kind of you highlighted some concerns I do have with the Colts.
Yeah, I just think since he's been a starter, he's been the model of consistency. 166 total tackles, 179 total tackles, 173 total tackles. That's top notch.
Yeah. I mean, I don't fault you for doing that.
And at 28 years old, I think he's still going to be heavily involved in the defense. Now, it will be interesting. Just of late, we saw that Jermaine Pratt was released by the Bengals. That was not a surprise to you or me. We didn't end up talking about defensive players in our post June 1st cut, players, but he definitely would have been one that we would have talked about. But it'll be interesting to see, does he go to the Colts? Because Lou Anarumo, the former defensive coordinator of the Bengals, who has that familiarity with Pratt, who had a really good year last year, does he slide in? They don't have speed anymore. They've got Jalen Carlisle's or Carly's, I don't know how you say that, right? He could step into that role. So does Pratt come in? That would make things interesting. But even if he did, Franklin was still very successful, even with speed there and doing what he was doing.
Yeah, it is an interesting point. I mean, I think that would be a great landing spot for Jermaine Pratt, with that familiarity with the Lou Anarumo system. And honestly, bringing a veteran player that can also help teach and bring these other guys along and get them up to speed to his scheme as well. But I agree, I wouldn't be nervous from a Zaire Franklin standpoint if Pratt does in fact come over.
All right, Joe, let's head over to tier number 2.
Okay, tier number 2. At number 4, I got Zaire Franklin. 5, Fred Warner. 6, Carson Schwessinger. 7, Zach Bond. And 8, TJ Edwards.
Okay, at number 5, I've got Terrell Bernard. 6, Jordan Brooks. 7, Edrin Cooper. 8, Nick Bolton. And 9, Zach Bond. All right, Joe, similar to what we did in our Dynasty rankings with tiers video that we did this last time, I'm going to give you the floor here. Based on what you see in tier 2, what surprises you? What do you like? What don't you like? What are your thoughts on what I got here?
Well, I was honestly surprised to see that you got Terrell Bernard up here in this tier. But other than that, I not too surprised with some of the names that you got there.
Interesting. I'm surprised that you don't have Terrell Bernard there. He's 26 years old. Mind you, he didn't have as good of a season this past season, but the year before that, 143 total tackles, 6.5 sacks. And he just signed a 4-year extension with the Bills, $50 million contract. To me, that's money. I have been burned so many times with a linebacker who possibly just out of nowhere gets cut, and then his value just goes right through the tubes. So to me, right, I know Bernard's going to be the guy, and now that Milano's having his injuries and stuff, he no longer going to be a factor. Dorian Williams actually did very well in both of their injury times. Does Bernard have more of an opportunity with tackles if he's there? I just think that he's a guy who's young enough, and he had that extension. So to me, those are things that I want to look at in the linebacker position, especially because it's not a guarantee these guys get picked up.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely the having the certainty with the contract is definitely a big deal. Um, just like I said, I was surprised that you had him at the top of your tier two.
Hmm. Now, one guy I do think is somewhat, in my opinion, I think he is a little bit underrated. Honestly, is Jordan Brooks. Obviously he's had some different surgeries, during his time in the NFL. But guy who played really, really well in Miami, and I didn't think he would because usually you haven't seen Miami linebackers do very well. I'm assuming you've got him in tier three.
No,
No, is he in your top 24 at least?
nope,
What? How
yep,
do you
nope.
not have Jordan Brooks in your top 24? I need to understand that one. That is nuts.
Why is it nuts?
I- I'm at a loss for words. I mean, he was linebacker 5 last year in our league. I mean, doesn't that
No, he
count for
wasn't.
something? Yeah, he was.
Look, I got him at the linebacker 12.
You better look again.
You better look again. Well, I'm
No,
also
I'm
sorting it by fantasy points per game. So based on fantasy points per game, he was 12.
okay. I'm looking at total.
Yeah. Oh, I like to
He-
look at the fantasy points per game. So he was the LB
mm.
12. I don't know.
Still,
I'm
LB 12.
concerned about his
He's
injuries.
still LB1 at that point. Like, why wouldn't he still be in the conversation of top 34 or top 24? Excuse me.
Yeah. I mean, he was a guy that was ultimately in consideration. I just ended up leaving him out.
Wow. I just if you look at what he did, obviously his last year in Seattle, not so much, but the two his 2 years in Seattle, 184 tackles, 161 total tackles. This past year in Miami, 143 total tackles. I just think that he's a guy who has performed on a consistent basis. I am shocked you don't have him, but nevertheless, we'll move on. As far as Bond goes, and I didn't know what was going to happen with him because Howie Roseman, he doesn't typically like to invest in the off ball linebacker position, but for Vic Fangio's defense, he prioritizes that. We thought that was going to be Devin White. It wasn't White. It was Bond, and Bond had an incredible year. I do find it interesting that they did draft Jihad Campbell though, because I think he kind of can play a similar type of role. So I'll be curious to see. He's got some injuries he has to deal with, so who knows what impact he'll have in his rookie year. But that to me is kind of an interesting one. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah. I mean, their linebacker core, it just is interesting in its own right. I mean, obviously, Zach Bond's there. I mean, N'Kobe Dean's injured. Not sure when he'll be back. Vic Fangio said he still will be out for a while. Um, and then there's Jihad Campbell, but he's also going to be coming off of shoulder surgery as well. Um, so yeah, the whole dynamic there is honestly pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that Kobe Dean, from what it indicated, it sounded like he's going to be out for a long time.
Yeah,
And I'd be concerned. I had him in my top 24 last time. He's no longer there. I think I don't say his career is in jeopardy. I mean, that would be off. But I think he really allowed himself to get to this prominent role in the Eagles, and that's gone.
yeah. I don't. I honestly took him out as well. Just not sure like what's going to come, and we've seen this happen to guys where they just get, especially at the linebacker position, where they just can't stay healthy, get injured a lot, and then next thing you know, they're not on a team, and nobody's really taking a chance on them.
Now, I am a little surprised that you don't have Nick Bolton in this group. What were your thoughts on there? I mean, he recently signed a 3-year deal, $45 million, $30 million guaranteed with the Chiefs. So we know that he's going to be on this team for at least 2 years. And not to mention he's been a productive player. His past 2 years haven't been necessarily as good as his second year. Do you feel like he's overrated?
Not that he's necessarily overrated, but just that he's primarily a first and second down linebacker. He doesn't play all three downs, which honestly I feel like caps his upside a little bit. But like you said, I mean, he had the one really standout year in 2022 when he had the 180 tackles, and he's a solid guy, but I don't see him as like a you know top 10 top 10 linebacker.
Mm. Now, why did you put Schlesinger here? I'm a little surprised by that.
Well, he's got instant opportunity with the Cleveland Browns. I mean, JOK is out there, and I think
for the year.
steps right in. They're really similar type players. And I'm excited about Schlesinger, and I think he's gonna got a lot of promise.
Is that because he's going to be playing with his hair on fire?
Well, I mean, that's
You
definitely
always have
part
a
of it.
bias with that hair flowing out, Joe.
Look, those guys just typically can play, and they stand out. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, brother. All right, well, let's head over to tier number 3.
And tier number 3, at number 9, I got Jack Campbell. Number 10, I've got Jahad Campbell. 11, Jamie and Sherwood. 12, Dan Henley. 13, Ernest Jones. And 14, Terrell Bernard.
At number 10, I got Jihad Campbell. 11, Carson Schlesinger. 12, Jamie Sherwood. 13, Jack Campbell. And 14, Dayon Henley. One guy that I was pretty impressed by this year, and he definitely got a big rise from me. I don't even know. I'm not even sure. I think I had him in my top 24. I'm not sure if I did or not, but he really came on the scene last year was Jamie Sherwood, a guy who was really a special team player that he ended up playing so well for the Jets that basically CJ Mosley's lost his job. But then when the Jets signed him to a 3-year, $45 million contract extension in the offseason, including him $30 million guaranteed, that was all I needed to see. I mean, this is a new regime. You're talking about Aaron Glenn coming in here, and a new general manager, and they decided that this is even their guy, and they decided to give him that amount of money. Like that to me, that sealed it. I mean, he's only 25 years old. And like I said, I mean, he had 154 total tackles. He took the league by storm last year.
Yeah, the fact that same for me. I mean, the fact that he's 25 years old and he ended up getting paid by the Jets gave me all the confidence to put him up here in the tier 3.
I mean, it just goes to show, and this is when we're talking about with the linebacker, episode here. Look at guys like Sherwood. This guy was a late round draft pick, came out of nowhere. He had, his first 3 years, he did absolutely squat diddly, right? You look at guys like Zach Bond. He did nothing while he was at the Saints. Then he goes to the Eagles. He jumps off. I think Zaire Franco was a former 7th-round pick. He didn't start really playing until after 3-4 years. So the linebacker position, you got to be patient with these guys. And if you want to hold anybody on your taxi squad, practice squad, whatever you want to call it, the linebackers are the ones because they just might pop off one day.
Yeah, definitely. There's always opportunity, and and also there's a decent amount of injuries at the linebacker position too. So you always want to have kind of that next man up just in case.
Yeah. One guy I'm a little curious about is Jack Campbell. He's a guy who obviously former 1st-round pick, a lot of excitement around him. I kind of wonder whether he would be kind of going into that bust territory, but he did take a jump from last year. At 89 total tackles last year, went to 125 total tackles. I think it did help him that Anzalone got injured, and then as a result, it allowed him to kind of play more. I just wonder with Anzalone coming back, does he not get as much playing time? He's a tough one for me.
Yeah, he is a tough one, just because he's got the 1st-round pedigree. He's got, the talent, and, it just, you mentioned it. The one downside is the playing time, and it's just like you've seen flashes of him when he does get that extra playing time. But Anzalone's not going to be able to hold down this LB1 starting role forever.
No, he's not, but I'm just saying, it just ever since that they drafted him, we thought that he'd be more incorporated in the defense, and he just hasn't been.
Yeah, that is true. He definitely hasn't been, but eventually, I think this year. I mean, maybe this is the year they, after he's got a couple of years under his belt, that they kind of, now that he's got that experience, maybe they let him he has more confidence to allow him to go out there and play more and really show what he's got.
Another guy that you and I couldn't ignore was Dayon Henley, a guy who had 142 total tackles. His second season, come out of Washington State. I really thought Junior Colson was going to be the guy. Now, he had dealt with some injuries last year. I don't have him in my top 24. I don't know about you, Joe, but I thought him reuniting with Jim Harbaugh and Minter, I just would have thought that he would just taken over, and it was Henley. And so I don't know. To me, it seems like Henley is kind of locked up that job as the LB1 there. So I think Colson's going to take a back seat.
Yeah, I don't. I originally I had Colson in there. I don't have him this go around for similar reasons. I just couldn't ignore what Henley was able to do, and it does seem like he's got a stranglehold of the starting linebacker role there. It'll be interesting to see, how Colson does in his second year, but just until we see something, I couldn't justify putting him in here.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. So let's head over to tier number 4, Joe.
Okay, in tier number 4 at 15, I've got Aziz Al-Shaair, 16, Frankie Louvu, 17, Nick Bolton, 18, Caden Ellis, and 19, Logan Wilson.
All right, at 15, I've got Aziz Al-Shaair, 16, Ernest Jones, 17, Patrick Queen, 18, TJ Edwards, and 19, Robert Spillane. I got to tell you, I am shocked. What is going on with this year? I tell you what, there have been a lot of times you and I have talked about various players, and you've been very high on them, and I've listened to you, and I've been convinced. How am I higher on Bobby Spillane than you are? You love Bobby Spillane. And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, honestly, I had a hard time not having him in here because you look at it. I mean, again, we talked about this earlier. This guy was purely a special teams player. These past 2 seasons in Las Vegas, he's absolutely crushed it. 158 total tackles, 148 total tackles. And now he goes to New England. He signed a whopping deal, and I mean whopping. I mean, I was not expecting this for the Patriots. I mean, I know they had a lot of money to spend, but they're not ones to really splurge like that, especially for the linebacker position. But he signed a 3-year, $33 million contract with the Patriots, and $20.6 million of that was guaranteed. I mean, that's a heck of an amount of guaranteed money for this guy. And if you look at it, even though he's up there in age. He's 29 years old right now. I'm looking at it as like, if you look at the contract, he's going to be with New England for the next 2 years. He probably won't be there for the 3rd year, but you can bet he's going to be there the next 2 years. And who does he have as competition at linebacker? I mean, that room is absolutely decimated. So in my mind, this guy, it's like, how do you ignore? Linebackers can change a dime a dozen. So to me, it's like, that Bobby Spillane is the lead dog. And he's got 2 years with probably no doubt that he's going to be gone. To me, I had to put him here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like Bobby Spillane. I mean, you just happened to mention his name before I did.
He's in the top 24 for you, though.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course
I
I
was
got
gonna
Spillane
say,
in
I'm
there.
like, who knows what happened with you over there?
Yeah, of course I got him in there. I surprisingly, it's a guy that I've had to kind of convince you on in the past, but now you are up over me. So
Yeah, I mean, one guy also, I mean, kind of came out of nowhere is Caden Ellis. I didn't have him in my top 24. I strongly considered it. He was on the periphery, but I don't know if the Falcons will ultimately be committed to him long term. The contract is an opt out there, and so to me, I'm a little bit more concerned about him.
yeah, I mean that makes sense. I just felt like his consistency over the last 3 years. I feel like I just had to find a way to put him in my top 24 here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, he's not even out there. I'm sorry. I was wrong about that. I confused his contracts. He's actually a free agent next year, and that's why I didn't keep putting him in there, because I was too spooked that after this year, if he doesn't go back with the Falcons, what happens with the guy? Is he just completely off the streets? So that's why I decided not to put Ellis in here, because the 1 year scared me.
Yeah, I mean that's understandable. I mean, we've mentioned it before, guys in contract years not knowing where they're going to go the next year, and not having that stability can definitely be a little worrisome.
Now, whereas TJ Edwards, he has 3 years left remaining on his contract, and he's a guy who's performed really, really well. I thought about putting him higher. I give you credit for how high you put him. You had him at 8. I've got him at 18. So it's a little bit of a divide between us. But I did think about moving him up higher. He's been very productive.
Yeah, I just the fact that he's just been so consistent. Really his last year in Philadelphia, and then since he's gotten to Chicago, he's been very consistent. Just felt like with that, and then like you said, there's still years left in the contract to be in Chicago. Felt like I had to put him up there at number 8.
Yeah, the only one that you and I are a little bit different on here is Ernest Jones. Although you had him at 13, I had him at 16, just different tiers. Tyrese Knight did show some flashes for them, and that contract for Ernest Jones, although I think it was a 3-year deal, they can get out of it after 1 year, which makes me kind of nervous. He's a guy I like, but I have to hedge my bets on some of the risk.
Yeah, I mean that definitely is fair, and he was a guy I was worried about and just hoping he was going to go back to Seattle because he had so much success and he just happened to go back there. But you're not wrong. Like if he does end up somewhere else, I would be concerned about him.
All right, let's head over to the final tier number 5. What do you got there?
Tier number 5, number 20. I've got Robert Spillane, 21 Blake Cashman, 22 Patrick Queen, 23 Quincy Williams, and 24 Ivan Pace Jr.
Okay, at number 20, I have Frankie Louvu, 21 Quincy Williams, 22 Alex Singleton, 23 Bobby Okereke, and number 24 Logan Wilson. All right, Joe, I'm going to let you spin behind the wheel a second time here. You're seeing my last tier. What jumps out to you? We don't have some of the same players in the top 24. What sticks out to your mind here in this last tier here?
Yeah, one guy that stands out is I was surprised you got Alex Singleton in your tier 5. Just being that he coming off of the ACL injury, 31 years old. They do bring in DJ Greenlaw as well. Or Dre
DJ
Greenlaw.
Greenlaw.
That's what I meant. To play linebacker. So just interesting you put him there.
Yeah, but I mean, you already see that Dre Greenlaw is already injured. And in my mind, Singleton has been a tackling machine. So to me, he's just a very productive player. And at this point, when you talk about linebackers, like I didn't include Devin Lloyd. I know you didn't either. He's a guy who his 5th-year option was declined. So basically, in my mind, if you're a linebacker and has 1-year deal left, you're up for grabs. So to me, I know Singleton is going to be productive. We've seen how productive he's been. So, and they didn't really, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the Broncos didn't really address the off-ball linebacker position other than bringing in Greenlaw.
No, not other than Drew Sanders truly being another option there as well.
But the guy, they can't figure out what they're going to do with that guy.
Well, that's what they're doing. That's what I'm saying. They've
I understand that. I'm just saying he's moved around the chessboard so many times, and he's not been able to. He hasn't been able to stick the landing at this point.
No, but they've never consistently kept him in one position, and that's what they're actually doing now. So we'll see what happens.
I moved on
that he's a real threat.
I really thought he was going to be somebody, and Sean Payton disappointed me. I thought he was going to be this next to Mario Davis figure for them. I don't know what the heck happened there.
Yeah, I mean, injuries happened, and then, that happened a lot. I mean, the injuries really stunted his growth, I feel like, if you can't be out there and really get those reps in there and get to experience the NFL, I feel like that really hampers guys' growth.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I didn't think that you'd have Patrick Queen in your top 24 because you don't typically like him, but he snuck in there.
Yeah, what do you mean I don't typically like Patrick Queen?
I don't feel like you typically like him. I feel like you're kind of more down on him.
Oh, I mean, I've always kind of liked him as a player. I
don't think you liked him in Pittsburgh, though.
No, I didn't really like him in Pittsburgh.
Okay, I was gonna say I didn't think you liked him.
He still had a.
You wanted him with Denver. That would have been you wanted the Broncos to sign him when he was a free agent.
Look, I for years until the Broncos finally signed Drake Greenlaw, I've wanted them to either draft somebody or bring in a high priority free agent at the linebacker position, and they never do. Always disappoint me. But that's beyond the point. But looking at Patrick Queen's year last year, he was he had a pretty good year, and I thought it would justify him being here in the top 24.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if Peyton Wilson ends up becoming more involved and getting more tackles, but I think Patrick Queen could even do better in his 2nd year in Pittsburgh.